Government officials have been questioning Apple about software updates that slow down older iPhones. Joining us now is Chairman of the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, Senator John Thune of South Dakota. Senator, thanks for being with us. I know we've spoken to you about this issue previously. Since then, we've got this 5-page memo from Apple answering, it would seem, many of your questions. Are you satisfied with their response?
Well, by and large, we appreciate their responsiveness, and obviously we've been digesting it. But clearly, I think the issue that we wanted them to address is when people have these, advanced types of devices like iPhones, that the companies that manufacture those devices be transparent about how they work. And of course, what we saw with this example was Apple, as they were communicating with their customers about this, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and confusion out there. So we were trying to clarify it. I think Apple has done, again, by and large, a good job of explaining what happened. I'm glad that they have lowered the price of batteries to some of the customers that were impacted by this. And if there are rebates for some of those that didn't get the lower priced batteries, that would be a good thing, too.
Yeah, so in your mind, is the matter close to closed?
We're going to continue to stay in touch with Apple and monitor this. We don't have any plans at this point to do anything more. I mean, obviously, people have asked, do you want to have hearings on this? We think that for the most part at least, the letter was responsive to the questions that we raised. We think that the sort of changes that Apple is adopting in response to this will create, I think, more transparency for their customers, and that's really what we're trying to achieve, is just to ensure that these companies that have these advanced technologies, sometimes when they communicate with their customer base about the changes that they're making, that there not be confusion, and I think that's sort of what happened here. There are a lot of folks who thought, frankly, of course, that this was planned obsolescence and that their phones were obsolete when all they really needed was a different battery.
Senator, while we have you, I just wanted to ask you about some headlines here. Nancy Pelosi saying trouble for a deal to avoid a government shutdown. The clock is ticking. We're getting pretty close to crunch time, and the president just made it sound like he's fine if this happens. What's the latest thinking on that?
I certainly don't want to see a government shutdown, and I don't know of anybody in the Senate that does. I hope what happens is that there is an agreement that's reached. It sounds like we're very close on a budget caps deal, some other things, perhaps debt limit that might ride on that agreement that could take the House-passed vehicle, send it back to them for another vote that would avoid any kind of a shutdown. I certainly don't think that's in anybody's best interest. We have an agreement to proceed on immigration. That debate will start next week in the Senate. That's what the Democrats had hoped to get out of all this, and so that I don't think there's any reason for anybody right now to shut the government down.
Yeah, I mean, the reports, Senator, seem to indicate that Leader McConnell and Schumer are getting very close. That's your understanding as well?
That's right. Our leader and the Democrat leader, Senator Schumer, I think are very close to a deal which would wrap up some of these outstanding issues that need to be resolved. And frankly, I think it's important for us as leaders here in Washington to provide certainty, as much certainty as we can, to people across the country with respect to the government operating and functioning, and then, the debt limit, some other issues, tax policy, some unresolved tax issues that need to be addressed. If we can get all those things sort of wrapped into this agreement, I think it would clear the path to start focusing on some of the other stuff that we have to do. One, of course, which next week will be the immigration debate.
Right. Is it your understanding it would be a 2-year deal, as seemingly has been outlined?
I think so. And of course, most of our members are very interested in seeing that we increase funding for national security. We're not meeting our requirements. Our readiness is really, I think, at risk. And a lot of Republican senators feel that way. I think the administration feels strongly about that. The Democrats, of course, are insisting that for every dollar increase in national security, there be a dollar increase in non-defense spending. We don't think there's a policy rationale for that, but that's sort of what the Democrats are trying to achieve out of this. And I understand there's going to have to be some give and take, but the main thing, at least as far as we're concerned on the budget caps deal, is, create some certainty, hopefully get a 2-year deal, get the plus up in military funding so we can take care of the national security requirements, which are desperately in need of funding right now.
And Senator, going back to the Apple issue, which I know is why you're here, I also wonder if it's your committee's business to get involved with issues about whether iPhones and social media need to be regulated more closely.
Well, you know, our committee has jurisdiction over the tech community, the internet. It has jurisdiction over the Federal Trade Commission, which is the Consumer Protection Enforcement Agency. We do a lot of stuff in the consumer protection space. I mean, we've had hearings on faulty airbags. We've had hearings on forcible removal of people from planes. We've had hearings on new technologies that are required in trains. I mean, our committee is tasked with doing oversight when it comes to consumer protection and safety. And so we think that it's certainly in our role to make sure that those companies that are manufacturing some of these wonderful, great, advanced, and new technologies communicate and have transparency with the people that they're their customers. And so we're just trying to make sure that the people have a voice in all this.
Yeah, you know, Senator, though, things move so quickly these days and advance so fast. Do you feel like the committee's up to it and those who work for you are up to it in terms of just keeping up with what really is of importance to the American people when it comes to these devices?
It's certainly a challenge because things are changing so rapidly, and that's what's exciting, is there's so much innovation out there. I mean, our committee is dealing right now with the issue of autonomous vehicles. We think that's a wonderful new technology, but it also has to have a policy framework in which to operate. And yeah, we've got wonderful people on our staffs. They're very sharp. They're very much in touch with what's happening in the economy right now. But it's always a challenge because when you've got an innovative economy that's starting to take off a little bit, and our economy is, and grow, there's a lot of change that happens, and keeping up with that change is always going to be a challenge.
Yeah, it certainly is. Autonomous vehicles could be, well, we could spend a long time on that as well.
We could talk a lot about that,
for now, yeah, and I look forward to it in the future. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Sounds good. Good to be with you all. Thanks.